Hello, friends.
Hey, mamas.
Welcome to My Invisible Disease podcast. We are here to share our struggles and hacks as two moms living with chronic illness.
Tune in and join our community as we share stories and experiences while we sort through the ups and downs of living with invisible disease.
Hey, girl.
Hey, Cassie.
I am so pumped about the guest that we have on the show today, Jenny Jones. She is
I like her name.
I know, right? we have a particular flavor around here. We love the Jennies. She's a published author. She just put out a kid's book, and what an amazing story.
Yeah, so Jenny is a rare disease advocate for FAS. I'm going to butcher it, but Familial Adenomatous Polyposis.
Yeah, good job.
So bad, Jenny. And short bowel syndrome, SBS.
Yes.
So that was a little bit better on my part. But she was diagnosed at a young age. And I just love that writing the kids' book, she's connecting with youth that might also be experiencing a diagnosis. So giving back.
Absolutely. She has her own fund that she runs. Like, what an advocate. So I'm so excited for everybody to learn more about Jenny Jones. Jenny, we're so excited to learn about your story. So do you mind sharing with us a little bit about what's been going on with you?
I would love to. So it started when I was a kid. I was having severe chronic abdominal pain, and my parents were on an HMO plan for insurance. So, of course, we had to have a primary referral, and she would not do it. She told my parents I was just a whiny child. Her words exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So my parents, it was awful. And my parents knew there was a chance that I had inherited a GI disease from my mom. So, they would have taken my pain seriously anyways. They're like, well, maybe she has it. Maybe it's this. So my parents changed to a different insurance plan as soon as they could to get me to a GI specialist. And of course, she immediately jumped on it. And she found that my pain was because I was pre-ulcerous from stress as a child.
And how old were you at this point?
Such a young age.
I was about 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And but then she confirmed that I did have the genetic disease, which is familial adenomatous polyposis. And so that primarily, the first thing is that it causes colon cancer at a younger age, but it has risk for other cancers and other manifestations outside of the colon too. And so by age 9, I had to have my colon removed because my polyps were starting to turn cancerous.
Is it common that it's diagnosed so young?
It's an insurance issue, I believe, because if a parent has it, then they know they have a 50% chance of their child having it. With that, the child should be tested for it upon birth, because we really need to be monitored from birth, because up to age 5, there's a higher risk for a liver cancer than you would have after 5. But a lot of people, whether it's insurance or a doctor, I'm not quite sure exactly, they don't want to test children until they're 10 or older. And I'm like, well, that could be too late. Like in my case, that would have been way too late.
Wow.
So it's so
frustrating. Because even my kids have been denied for life insurance because of my medical history. So it's Canada's different. We have universal healthcare, but that's just life insurance and stuff. But interesting. It's interesting that that plays such a big role. But continue.
It's frustrating that it plays such a big role.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But so I had my first surgery at 9 to remove my colon. I was given an ileostomy that was supposed to be temporary. But then after a couple weeks of returning home from the hospital, my incision got infected. And so I had to go back to the ER. And I had to cut it open while I was in the ER and get it cleaned out, which was a very traumatizing experience.
I have a 9-year-old, so I'm just thinking like, oh my God.
It was awful. Like they had to hold me down and everything. It was horrible. A couple weeks later after that, then what we found out to be was my small intestine had wrapped around itself and surrounding organs, and it had cut off my blood supply. However, the ER doctor told my parents I was just a whiny child. That exact phrasing again. Sent me home. And then the next day, my parents took me back, and a different doctor did more thorough testing. And they were like, we can't believe she lived through the night. We've got to get her in for surgery right away. And unfortunately, that caused my J pouch to die. So then I was diagnosed with another rare disease, short bowel syndrome. So fast forward, I have 3 more surgeries within this year. I have my ileostomy, and I'm left with medical PTSD. I'm suicidal. I'm homicidal. I was not fun to be around.
Yeah.
But in high school, I was able to have my ostomy reversed and into a straight pull through. But then I started having complications from my short bowel. I was having vomiting. I was having really high excessive diarrhea, like worse than you would normally have. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. So I had months of medical testing in state, out of state, and nothing could be figured out. In the meantime, while they're trying to figure that out, I had a hole in my intestine created by my short bowel syndrome. It caused an ulcer, and that led to a hole. And so that was a really fun ordeal trying to get that healed up. I was on TPN for months. I was in PO for nothing by mouth for I don't even know how long it was. And I did hyperbaric treatments. But it worked. It got I didn't have to have surgery for that, thankfully.
Wow.
I still have an ulcer there. But
And how old were you at that time? That was in high school?
that was in high school. So
Yeah.
I was 15 when I had my ostomy reverse. So between 15, it would have been 15 still at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Like peak of puberty. Like, jeez. Yeah.
It's hard enough being a teenager, let alone in and out of all of these crazy treatments. I can imagine that was not fun to go through.
Yeah.
No, it was very upsetting, but it was really I had the best teachers. I was at the best school I could have been at, I think.
Mhm.
And they worked with me. I was the only person in school that got to wear tank top because of my central line. Because it hurt if anything was over it. So I was like, no, I'm not. But they were great. I was able to. I had to be. I'd even had my math teacher came and tutored me at home to make sure to help me graduate on time and everything.
Oh wow, yeah, that's great. Just having that support.
Yeah, and everybody at school was really nice and everything, like all the other students and things. So they just knew I was the sick one, and nobody asked questions. It was great as far as that goes.
That is lucky. I mean, and there is, I'm imagining right now, even just looking at you, I mean, our podcast is called My Invisible Disease, but I also am kind of guessing that, you weren't wearing it on, your external body, right? You kind of still fit a bit of a mold as far as, looking like you're not sick, probably. I don't know how.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I didn't look like I felt necessarily good, but you wouldn't have known anything as severe as it was.
Yeah.
Just looking at me.
How old are you now?
I am 37 now.
Okay. So how has the last bit been looking for you? Like has your illness progressed? Like where are you at as far as treatments and things like that goes?
Well, so after I had complications from my ostomy reversal, and I had to have another surgery from that, and then it stabilized for the next 5 years. So I had a lot of pain though from it, but in 2015 things started to change again. I started having chronic nausea and pain increased again, and I had my gallbladder removed in 2021, and actually that was a good thing because not only was it full of gallstones, but it was precancerous from the FAP.
Wow.
However,
and sorry, what does that stand for?
The Familial Adenomatous Polyposis.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Sorry.
You shortened it. I don't know.
But it kicked off into what I would come to find out was abdominal migraine. And so I spent like 6.5 months with 7 specialists trying to figure out why I was in debilitating pain, and I was spending most of my time bedbound. But now, so we figured that out. I'm on medicine for it. I had physical therapy, and I can do activities now. So things are pretty stable right now. I do have a lot of vomiting for an unknown reason right now that we're trying to figure that out. But overall, I would say things are pretty good.
Well, especially when you're so used to carrying symptoms, and it's your normal is going to be defined a little bit differently from someone else's, but you have to take advantage when you're feeling good. I think about that quite a bit myself. And
so one thing that I think is always funny and now it's starting to happen. People look at me and they're like, so how are you? And because you've been dealing with this for so freaking long, like basically your entire life, do they like re-ask you the question? Like, but like, how are you really doing? Like, how do you answer that? Because you kind of have like a state of normal, right?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like most people, you know, they're like, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Or I'll be like, oh, I'm hanging in. And they just they just leave it at that. I don't know that they even really care or realize that's just kind of my standard answer. But the people that really know me, they can see me walk and they're like, you don't feel good today.
Yeah.
Like, you're not walking right today. And I'm like, yeah, it's a tougher day.
So I know that you have done quite a bit of advocacy within your space. Do you know any like statistics around your diagnosis? Are you familiar with, how common it is of other people experiencing, any similar journey to what you've experienced, or because I know you've kind of used the word rare, and, what is your experience compared to other people that might have your diagnosis?
So FAP is a rare disease, and so is short bowel syndrome. And I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but it's kind of a similar experience for a lot of people as far as either we get or we are preventing colon cancer, and then it moves on to now we have to deal with the polyps in our stomach or our duodenum. And we have to deal with our thyroid. So it kind of, what I've noticed is that it seems to hit the same common areas, but then you can also have your outliers or these other things that can happen that may not be quite as common amongst everybody. So it's kind of stomach and duodenum seem to be the next places, or the thyroid.
Interesting. And then, for your experience as far as like day-to-day life, has this affected, your work, going into different like paths because it started so young?
It did. It shaped everything. It shaped where I decided to go to school, where I decided to live, so I wanted to work to help people with chronic illness. Because I didn't want people to go through what I did.
Yeah.
And so that also is what led me into doing advocacy work too, on the side. And then day to day, it's just kind of my work accommodates me really well. And I've learned that I can't do work that I have to travel for, especially more than once in the day. It's too much on my body and I can't do it. So I've learned through trial and error things that work and things that don't. And fortunately, if I'm having a short bowel flare, because sometimes that means I'm going to the bathroom literally every 2 minutes, I can take time if I need to, or if, like most days where I'm stubborn, I go to work and I see how it does for the first half of the day, and then I'll go home.
Yeah.
but I can schedule my day around, so I can be in the office part. I can just be in my office and not necessarily out seeing people at all times.
Yeah, that's great.
Zoom meetings with the camera off.
Yeah.
Okay, actually though, one of my very good friends was on a Zoom meeting and she excused herself. She turned her camera off and like a few minutes later went to the bathroom, took a normal poop with all of the things that like sounds and stuff, and came back and seen that her mic was turned off. She was not muted. She was not muted.
Oh gosh.
So nobody said anything, but it was for a BNI group, and she ended up being a part of that BNI group, Jenny. Can you imagine? No. Like, I just, oh my God.
That's awful.
Like, who is that? The only person.
I have two friends right now taking an online course for dentistry, and it's like managing the offices and kind of extended learning. And one of the guys, I believe he was muted, but he was on his phone and it was a Zoom class. And I don't think you have view speaker. So he's looking at the speaker, but I don't think he realized that his video was still shown to everyone. He took off his shirt, went to the bathroom, it was, they had like the bathroom ceiling. And so, this happens. It just happens. But I think it is like one thing, especially with COVID, which I know you're dealing with right now, Jenny, but one thing I do think that has really kind of helped people with chronic illness that might need a little bit more flexibility, that type of thing with work, is the idea of working from home if they weren't already, or having that really flexible job. I think it's really brought it to the forefront. But yeah, of course, accidents happen. Absolutely. Yeah. But that's really interesting. Yeah.
My coworker, her office is right next to the bathroom. So whenever I'm having a particularly rough moment, I come out. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no."
Well,
front row seats.
Yes, I'm sure she's very understanding, and
She is.
you know, with transparency, it's more common that people, it can relate actually than would judge. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do you find too, like, so when you were young, just because I think possibly, especially like the idea of getting like PTSD and different things like that, did you have support within the community of chronic illness for yourself? Like, is that something that came later in life with advocacy and maybe reaching out, meeting other people that are like have a similar struggle? Like, what did your support look like? Obviously, you said you had some really great teachers and educators that stepped up. Yeah, how did, family relationships, different things like that, what did that look like for you?
I mean, my family was great. Like my mom, she has FAP and short bowel syndrome. She has an ostomy still. My grandfather had an ostomy and he had FAP and everything. So I had two people that could relate to me, and really my mom and I, what we go through, she relates the most to me more than anybody of all the people that I've ever encountered, because her and I are so similar. But I didn't, outside of that, though, outside of my family, I didn't know anybody else. I didn't tell anybody else. My teachers, my school had to know because for the accommodations. But so it was so isolating, and I was angry. So I blamed my mom. So I wasn't going to talk to my mom, and I blamed my dad because he helped create me, and so I just isolated myself, and it was absolutely horrible. Now in high school, though, I was able to go to the youth rally, which is an organization for teens who have bowel diversions, or so the ostomies or J pouches or different urostomies, different things like that. And it was incredible. So I got to meet people who had ostomies that weren't older people.
Yeah.
Because I did have the UAA. Now it was UAA back then, but they have local chapters. And so I got to meet, people that were a lot older than me and who were very nice, but nobody myself. And so that was the first time of the youth rally I got to meet someone outside of my family who had FAP even. And that was really helpful. It was around that time, when I was 14, I decided to go to counseling to start to learn how to cope and to process. And so around that time, things started to get better emotionally. And now I have friends. I tell friends. Back then I didn't tell friends. So now I've got my great family. I've got friends. I've got online support. And now it's just amazing. But we didn't have that online stuff back then. That was, in the 90s, early 2000s. It wasn't quite such a thing.
What a good point. I don't know. I've never met anyone else with my disease. Yeah. And actually, no, sorry. Over COVID, I met someone, but totally different symptoms, but she had my disease. And that was the very first time. And I'm 38. So, I probably would have been 36 the first time I face-to-face met someone else. And she was older, maybe by about 10 years. But online is where all of my connections are, other than, because it's genetic for me too, other than my family. So my mom and I have other family members. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to see that shift when you do have something that is more rare.
Well,
even my disease Google is not that uncommon.
Everything on Google about me says, usually affects people in like their 50s, 60s. So I kind of appreciate that I'm like the young hot one, There
you go.
But I've never met anybody, but who knows?
What's the age range when you go get your your IVs? Or do you sit by other people, Cassie?
When I go for IV treatment, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what though? Because it's like the chemo ward, it ranges from dialysis or iron infusion. So there's like a whole mix of us that are there. But
yeah.
I do quite enjoy my time with the seniors around me.
Yeah. But it is, I think there is something to that side of it, though, as you get older, as you're more open to sharing, how you just don't hold it in as much, especially when it's been something you've been dealing with for so long.
Well, and it is liberating because I didn't attach stigma to an ostomy. I mean, my mom has one. My grandpa did. I grew up with it. And I wouldn't attach it to anyone else, but I did to me.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid of what other people, how I would be treated. And so it's just, I had such a fear of anybody knowing anything about me. And when I finally learned some confidence and some self-love, and I just if you don't like it, you don't like it. It didn't bother me. If you don't want to hire me, that's fine. You don't want to whatever.
Yeah.
I'm better off without you.
So if somebody was listening to this podcast right now and they got a similar diagnosis to you, what would be your message to them?
So a lot of people think FAP is a death sentence, and it's not. As long as you have the proper monitoring, the proper treatments, you can live to be near 100. I guarantee you, because my friend Carlton Myers, the dad of one of my good friends, Kevin Myers, he lived to 96 with FAP. And yes, not everybody's going to live that long, but if you arm yourself with the information and you don't hesitate to ask questions, you don't hesitate to ask for treatments and communicate with your doctors and stay on top of them, that's a big part. To make sure you're getting the monitoring and the treatments, you can live a normal life expectancy. And the other thing, though, I also encourage is counseling, because this is a lot. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot for you and your family. And really, for everybody's mental health, everybody should just go to counseling.
Yeah. Well, the idea that, even just in and out of the hospital, the chronic pain, like different things like that, it's just not necessarily, it's your normal, but it's not, the general public's normal. So there is a disconnect between what other people have to deal with and like trying to relate yourself in this world that doesn't necessarily mirror your own experience. So I know that you have done quite a bit with the advocacy and getting involved, and as well as a children's book. Do you want to talk about a few things that you've been kind of doing there? And yeah.
So last year was my 10th anniversary for my blog, Life's a Polyp, and it's been pretty cool. It started over as just a blog, and I've expanded it to YouTube, to different social media things. I started the NORD FAP Research Fund in 2015, and so this year I got partnered with someone at NORD. So she said if I got really aggressive with it, we could probably get it funded all the way this year. So that's my thing for this year.
You go, girlfriend. Good for you.
Thank you. But yeah, so last year though, so I had my children's book published about FAP. It's called Life's a Polyp with Zeke and Katie. And it really focuses on what a child would experience with it. It looks at physical, emotional, and helps walk through different possibilities with it. Even if a child isn't the one with the diagnosis, it can help them understand the person that they love who is going through it.
Where can people find that?
It's on Amazon, but it's also on Imagine We Publishers, and it's actually a little bit cheaper there, I believe.
And we'll make sure to put any links in the show notes as well for anyone that's looking.
And it is, but on Amazon, though, it does have a digital format available.
Perfect. Awesome. And then, so coming back to, do you have kids yourself?
I don't. My boyfriend has a son, though.
Oh, okay.
And I have other children in my life that I've helped take care of.
Oh, that's great. Great. And then, Cassie, do you want to get a little bit into our little special question segment?
Okay. So this is my favorite part. Have you ever heard of the game Fuck, Marry, Kill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we kind of have like a similar thing, but we've changed it so we don't say the F word as much. So we changed it to marry, cheat, and
screw.
So Mary is like your tried and true, like something that is like super important to you for like your self-care and something that like you're going to ride it out forever. The cheat is kind of like your guilty pleasure, like what you're into, maybe a little more fad-like. And then screw is just something you're totally over. So I'm super curious because you have been living with this for so long. You've probably done different things, changed different diets, all of these different things. I know you talked about how important counseling is to you. So what would you marry? Like, what's your rock solid?
Couldn't pick just one. I had to pick counseling and physical therapy because they are both so important. And the doctors don't tell you this. You know, they don't suggest these things. I mean, you need counseling for your mental health, but when you have abdominal surgeries, you need physical therapy after. And so I go back to physical therapy after every surgery now.
I think that's great advice because I totally agree. You know, it's not something that's recommended. And there's a lot of trauma that happens when you go through surgery, like to your physical body, let alone emotionally and mentally. Yeah,
absolutely. And with the abdominal surgeries, what they don't tell you is that, you know, they're cutting, even laparoscopic, they're cutting through your abdominal muscles there that support your back. So if you don't get those re-strengthened, you're going to have back pain.
Jenny, write this down. We're dealing with this very soon. Write this down.
Well, I already have diastasis recti from having kids. And then I've had like a hysterectomy and then obviously like waiting for a liver transplant. I'm like, but I wish I had known after having kids, even though I know that it's funny that it's totally not related to my disease, but it affects me now and my disease now because my core strength is so weak. But physical therapy, note to self.
Check. Yeah, got it written down.
Check.
All right. So what's your guilty pleasure? What are you cheating with?
Oh my God. I'm gonna say it's iced tea because so I have anemia and I do iron infusions, but I also do iron pills. And what my hematologist had told me was that to help with absorption is don't drink iced tea or, you know, anything like with the tannins in it 2 hours before or after you take iron and to take vitamin C every day. So when I get to sneak some iced tea, it's like a guilty pleasure.
Is it okay? Wait. So now this is something too. In Canada, we just have like Nest tea or like sweet tea, I guess. But in the US, there's different types of tea, like iced tea.
Yeah. There's all kinds. Like, and I'm kind of more. I'm in the more southern side of like Southwest. I hate sweet tea, but hate it. But the flavored teas, oh my gosh, they're so good.
Awesome. I love that.
Are you into the Starbucks ones?
I do like those too.
Yeah. Which one's your favorite one?
Oh my gosh, I just I like the acai strawberry.
Oh yeah,
when they put the tea with it, that's pretty good.
I love the green tea lemonade. That is like
I like that one too.
Yeah.
All right,
we do have a Starbucks here, even though we're really small town.
I did not see a Starbucks when I drove through.
Okay. Well, it's in the next town next to us, but yes.
And last but not least, what is your screw it? I'm done with it. What are you moving on from and leaving behind in 2023?
I absolutely hate CBD. Now, I know a lot of people it works well for them, but for me, it gives me insomnia and it makes my short bowel syndrome worse. So I'm I'm refusing to take CBD anymore. I hate it.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan, but I notice like different types I take. Like there's ones that keep me up at night rather than help me sleep. And like, so I can see how, especially when you have a sensitive body, like you notice stuff like that too. So
I know. My mom uses it to help with her pain. And I'm like, that's great, Mom. I'm glad it helps you. I'm over here sleeping. Haven't been sleeping for 48 hours. So.
Wow. Yeah. Screw it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm all for other people, but don't try to get me to take it again.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, yeah. I mean, and that's it. Like, I always think like there's not just a blanket that works for everybody. We're all so unique and our makeups are so unique. That one thing that works for you might not work for someone else. And then maybe there's someone out listening that's like, yeah, I found that like it kept me up too. So you're not alone.
Wait, I also shit nonstop after I take CBD. Like, no, just kidding.
Really?
Yeah,
no, I
totally.
Don't.
No,
I'm more into
it's like
THC than the CBD.
Yeah, with someone else. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, because I was doing like the capsules. I did capsules, and it's like I think it lubricates the intestine, and it's
yeah, that
you
totally.
know, I'm like, that's all I can think is it's like I'm just drinking a whole bunch of olive oil.
Yeah. No, that's like I take magnesium before bed, and sometimes like just don't take too much.
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
That gets me.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Awesome. Well, Jenny, can you give us like where people can find out more information? Maybe even like the website for your blog, if you want to share it on here. All of this information we'll also have as a resource in the show notes too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my website is lifesapolyp.com, and all my social media handles are lifesapolyp. I think I'm on every one of them just in case. I'm going to grab that handle before someone else tries to. And then, and then I have my shop is at cafepress.com, lifesapolyp, and I have different designs on there for rare disease, chronic illness, FAP, but I donate all of the profits to the Nord FAP Fund.
That's really great. Yeah, it's really neat to see when people, take their own struggle and run with it to help others. And I think it's just so fantastic, especially, getting funding and partnering, it's just so beneficial.
I can't wait to check out your book.
Yeah.
I love it. My partner's son, he helped inspire the two main characters because I could not come up with anything. And my boyfriend, he's a graphic designer, and he could not come up with anything. So he helped us with his inspirational drawings.
So it's
really
cool.
fun.
Yeah, that's so fun.
It's really fun.
Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up now, but thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey mamas, we see you. And we want you to join our Facebook community where we can connect and continue the conversation.
Join our private Facebook group at My Invisible Disease, because no one should go through this alone.
Thank you for listening, and check us out at myinvisibledisease.com.